Board of Douglas County Commissioners 5:30 business meeting. We are joined by Commissioner Kelly online. If you would like a paper copy of the agenda, there are some over by the coffee cups there. We will walk ourselves through our agenda for tonight. We did have a work session just earlier at 4 o'clock on the Douglas County Open Space Plan. You can access that recording on our website or YouTube channel. And then we will take any comments that our folks who were here for that. We're happy to keep those and have them during general public comment. So first we'll have our consent agenda, followed by general public comment. We'll first welcome public comment for addressing issues that are not on today's agenda, but otherwise related to county business. Given our limited time and need to have an orderly and efficient meeting, we can apply certain rules regarding public comment. We do our best to enforce the rules consistently and without regard to point of view expressed by the speaker. And those are also listed on the agenda. They are one, each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes of speaking time. However, we'll accept public comment of any length in writing at any time. Individual speakers may not donate unused time to other speakers. 3, all comments must address topics within the jurisdiction of the Douglas County Commission. And 4, we reserve the right to mute any speaker whose comments are threatening, aggressively hostile, or belligerent. Please give your full name and address for our meeting minutes and address your comments up here to the Commission. Please know that the comments received by the Commission during our meetings do not necessarily represent the views of Douglas County government, but we value the input. We don't usually respond to general public comment on the spot, but if you'll leave your contact information with county staff, we will try and get specific questions answered. After general public comment, we move to our regular agenda, of which we have 3 items tonight. And for each action item on that list, we will hear from staff or an applicant, followed by questions from the Commission, and then open the item for public comment. Once public comment is closed, we bring it back to the Commission for further discussion and a vote. So lastly, the recording of this meeting is also available on the county's YouTube page and website. So with that, we will move to our consent agenda. Commissioners, we have all of 1 item on our consent agenda. Is there any need to pull that item for further consideration? Okay. Any member of the public who would like to pull our consent agenda item for further discussion? And online? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the Commission for a motion.
Commissioner Reed, move to approve consent agenda item 1.1.
We did not actually get a verbal or an audio from Commissioner Kelly. No, I don't have your audio. I think he meant to second. Oh, here we go. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. So I'm going to move to general public comment. Is there anyone here who would like to address the Commission? And I don't think we have a sign-up sheet out. Yeah, if you just give your name, thank you.
Marcia Pohl, Baldwin, Kansas. Just recently, the county planners voted 6-3 for the 2,500-foot setbacks from property lines from the wind turbines for the safety, health, and of the rural citizens of the county. In April of 2023, in Marshall County, there was a turbine blade that kind of blew apart, and its pieces went over 2,100 feet. And I do have some of its pieces. These projectiles are sharp, and they're pretty, kind of like an arrow. They're, And if it went over 2,100 feet, and the wind turbines turn at 200 miles an hour on the average, then this could do a lot of harm to cattle and people or anything that's out there, So and then also there was a fire safety concern, and we know that the fire safety zone for wind turbines is 1,700 feet. And according to Gary Bauer, who is a retired fire chief of the United States Air Force and a retired fire marshal of the city of Winfield, Kansas, pieces of blades have been documented to travel over 4,200 feet. What I'm here for is just to say, I am asking you to please pass the recommended 2,500-foot setback from property lines that will be in your hands soon if they aren't already. So, all right, thank you. Oops.
Do we have anyone else for general public comment?
Hi, good evening. My name is Michael Allman. I live in Lawrence, Kansas. I attended your work session just before the meeting about the open space plan, and very glad to see that you're doing this, first of all. And I was particularly pleased to see how you've prioritized, singled out and prioritized the importance of preserving the Wakarusa River Valley corridor. There are, when we consider open space in Douglas County, basically the county is primarily, as we know, the area is rural, much larger than the physical area of the urbanized towns, particularly Lawrence. And to me, it seems like one of the best strategies for preserving open space is to somehow, with whatever tools you can come up with, to ensure the financial viability of farming and ranching. I mean, by definition, that's open space, and let's make it worthwhile, particularly for new upcoming young farmers, maybe techniques, for instance, and I think Commissioner Willie is already working on getting young potential aspiring farmers connected with retiring farmers to gain access to land, things like that, and any other economic means you can come up with. The other tool that I think you might invest more effort into or attention to, whatever, is regarding annexation. Of course, you know, the planners at the city are more interested in urbanizing areas, you know, more growth, more housing, more industry. Thank you. Whereas rural areas, we're more interested in preserving the open space and agriculture and sensitive lands. So there's a kind of a back and forth balance of pressure there. The point of influx there, I guess I should say, is annexation. You should use that tool very selectively. We need to have some land annexed. Lawrence is looking right now, extending infrastructure to the west of K10 sector. But annexed land only in areas that both of you agree are appropriate. For instance, I wouldn't suggest annexing area around the airport. But just keep that in mind. That's a very powerful tool that once you release that land to be annexed, you lose your power. Thanks.
Thank you. Do you have any other public comment? Sarah, do we have anyone online? Okay, that will close general public comment and bring it back for our regular agenda. We're starting with a neighborhood revitalization area for a historic rehabilitation of 900 Rhode Island Street. So Sam, are you starting us off?
Yes. Just 1 second, I'm gonna have the presentation pulled up. All right, before I start, I wanted to double check. Commissioner Kelly, are you able to see that presentation?
Oh, if you can hear me.
Yes, all right, thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Sam Camp, Economic Development Analyst with the City of Lawrence. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Turnholla Building, a neighborhood revitalization area incentive request for the Turnholla Building located in 900 Rhode Island Street. So just a quick overview of the items we're going to be discussing tonight. Just an overview of the project, the request from the applicant, the analysis, the staff analysis, considerations, recommendations from staff, and then the requested actions of the commission and next steps. So just as an overall review of the project, so what we're talking about in terms of scope and floor space, so it'll be about, on that first floor, about 5,000 square feet of a commercial restaurant renovation. And then on that second floor, what you may consider the main floor walking up is that community and event space of about 4,500 square feet. So the project will be on that one lot, the currently existing building. It'll be a historic rehabilitation for the property. And that rehabilitation plan calls for, to match with the covenants that are on the plan, structural improvements, including window, floor, and exterior rehabilitation, and some ADA compliance. So the request from the applicant for the commission's consideration tonight is a 15-year, 70% NRA rebate. And as a reminder of what that NRA is, it is a property tax rebate program that only applies to the incremental valuation of the property. So the base property value, the taxes that are collected are shielded. The property owner continues to pay, as well as the additional property tax that's not considered in the incentives, that 30%. Outside of the applicant's rebate. So just a visualization of what that looks like, as well as some numbers. So when we're talking about the current base tax payment for all three taxing jurisdictions, that's the $4,100. That will be permanently shielded throughout the life of the NRA. The approximate collected increment, that 30% that's unshielded for all three taxing jurisdictions will be between $12,000 and $19,000 over the 15 years. And then the approximate rebate to the applicant over that 15 years, that 70% is going to be about $28,000 to $45,000 per year. So specifically for the county, when we're looking at the amount collected, that amount collected does include the current base payment plus that 30%. So from year one, about $6,000, rounding up, all the way to approximately $9,000 or $8,700 in year 15. And specifically from the county reimbursed would be starting from $12,000 to about $19,000. And then just a quick review of the past NRA projects that have been approved throughout the county, most recently the New Hampshire Lofts and 700 New Hampshire. New Hampshire Lofts is that infill affordable housing just across the street from here or down the street. And the 700 New Hampshire is the commercial rehabilitation of the Old Borders bookstore. So looking at the analysis, the cost-benefit ratio of this project, looking at the county, we're looking at a 5.99 cost-benefit ratio. That mainly comes from the fact that this property is expected to generate a lot of sales tax. So when we're looking at that, that's where, despite the rebate given to the owner that wouldn't be received by the county, a lot of that is made up in the sales tax that's expected as part of the property, both the restaurant and the upstairs community portion, community space theater portion. So some additional considerations from the city and the county. The project is in alignment with the city's economic development policy and Plan 2040. Does meet the city's goals of increasing historic rehabilitation and investing in community arts and culture. And this is with the historic covenants on the property that kind of determine the standards of rehabilitation, the use of the property afterwards. There are some additional burdens on that redevelopment that make it probably more expensive to rehabilitate compared to other projects or what you might consider a normal rehabilitation. So the recommendations from staff, this project does meet the requirements for the incentives requested at all levels, but particularly for the county, the NRA. The Public Incentives Review Committee did vote 5-0 to recommend the 70% NRA. And then last week, the City Commission unanimously voted to approve the 70% request as well. So the recommended actions and the next steps for tonight, you'll be considering the county's participation in the Turnholla NRA, and then authorizing the county administrator to execute a cooperative agreement with the governing bodies on administrative responsibilities for managing that NRA over the 15 years. After tonight, the school board still needs to consider their participation, and the city commission needs to finalize the NRA plan on a second reading. And we do have the applicant here if he wants to just take a few minutes to explain what the project is, give some background, then we can go ahead and take some questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sam. I'm Patrick Watkins. I'm here on behalf of Turnholla LLC, which is the owner of this property. This is one of the special ones here in town. One of the old buildings that is here from very early in our history. Mike Myers mentioned it at PERC, but this building, the Turnholla, is 32 years older than the building that we're in right now, which is sort of a little bit of context about what we're talking about. And it's really remarkable that it's still standing. It's a testament to the work that was done by the LPA, the County Heritage Council, and countless community volunteers who dedicated time for their nonprofits or for whatever endeavor to help save this building. So it's a celebration that we're here today. The owner has engaged very competent professionals at Hernley Architects to help with the preservation and the design. And they've crafted a design that's been approved by the National Park Service and the State Historical Society. It's a thoughtful design. This property needs a lot, though. And if anyone would like to walk through it at any point in time, I'm happy to show them. It lacks every major system, and it requires a great deal of structural work. So we've crafted what we think is a thoughtful incentive package. We're pleased to receive the support of the staff, third-party reviewers, PERC, the city. There's so many good things to say about this project, but I know you all have a lot of business to do, so we'll be available for any questions that you might have. Thanks for your time and effort.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any initial questions for either Sam or Patrick? No. Okay, with that, we will open this item up for public comment. Is there anyone here, either in the room, who would like to give public comment on this item? Sarah, anyone online? Okay, with that, closing public comment, bring it back to the commission for discussion. Who would like to lead us off?
This is Commissioner Reed. I will just say I've been I've known that this was coming for just a little bit now and have been excited to know that there is some progress being made and some concepts. So I think it looks like a great package, and agree that it's sort of a model project perhaps for what these NRA incentives are for. And so I'm excited to see what it looks like. I haven't been in that building in probably a decade now, so I might take you up on that tour, Patrick, see what it looks like now, and then get the full effect of before and after.
I agree. This building is a gem for East Lawrence. It's a gem for downtown. I lived around the block from that for a couple of years, and I'm really glad to see that we won't lose it. These properties are so much work and so much expense. I struggle with some of the larger NRAs, and this one at the 70%, I feel like it satisfies our need as a county to capture any valuation that would happen, any increase in tax revenue if it weren't renovated, but definitely gains us a lot in terms of property tax dollars in the long run when it does come on the tax rolls. So I think this is a great project. I'm kind of happy to be involved with it. Any other comments? Commissioner Kelly?
I'm going to apologize for my sound. Some things outside of my control. I'm very supportive of this, if you can hear me, and really happy with the solar array that's included in the roof.
Thank you. Would I hear a motion from any commissioners, preferably one we can hear better?
We can hear you pretty good that time, Commissioner Kelly, but I'll make the motion. It's Commissioner Reed, I move to approve a 15-year, Douglas County's participation in a 15-year, 70% neighborhood revitalization area to conduct historic rehabilitation on the property at 900 Rhode Island Street, Lawrence, Kansas, and authorize the county administrator to execute a cooperative agreement with the city of Lawrence, Douglas County, and USD 497 for the administration of duties related to 900 Rhode Island Street neighborhood revitalization area.
Do we have a second? I believe Commissioner Kelly signified as a second. So all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That brings us to our next item, which is a conditional use permit for a vacation rental use at 724 East 715 Road.
Thanks, Commissioners. Mary Millers and the panel.
Good evening, Commissioners, and I will be sharing my screen real quickly. As you mentioned, this is a CUP for a vacation rental on East 715 Road. The property is in the southwest corner of Douglas County. It's actually just right by Lone Star Lake. This is a more detailed picture. It actually consists of two parcels. On the north, that's where the water meter is located, and the residence is on the southern parcel, so they're both included in the CUP application. And a vacation rental is defined as just a dwelling or a part of a dwelling that's rented for less than 30 days. So it's differentiated from other rentals just in the fact that you stay there less time. And it's very common for people just to stay for a weekend or a week. And kind of the common terminology, but like Airbnbs and those kind of uses. And probably the number one factor with this, it's a very simple project, but the number one factor is that it takes access from East 715 Road, and that's also known as the Lone Star Lake Road. And in the staff report, you might have noticed I called it a private road because technically it's not in the right of way, but it's actually not a private road. It's owned by Douglas County and maintained, and it's for the use of people to the lake. So a more accurate phrase for the road would have been maybe a limited use road. It's not intended to carry a lot of traffic from one point to another, but just to provide traffic around Lone Star Lake. And the reason that's important is when this was reviewed, the county engineer wanted to make sure that there wasn't a big increase of traffic with the vacation rental use. And so there is a condition being suggested to limit the number of residents in the vacation rental to no more than 6 adults and no more than 2 cars. And that would maintain pretty much the same kind of traffic that was there prior. And I'll discuss that a little bit further as we go along. And I also wanted to mention that we are in the process of developing a text amendment, zoning and code staff and planning. We're working on some language to develop a text amendment so that these more minor kind of vacation rentals could be processed administratively. And then more impactful vacation rentals that may be very large or might have a lot of outdoor activities, those would still go through the conditional use permit process, but we want to establish an administrative review. So not all of them have to come before you. And also another benefit to the text amendment would be setting some general standards that would apply to all the vacation rentals. So with this one, we looked at the standards that were applied to previous conditional use permits and also the ones that were putting together in the draft amendment. And so that's where we're coming up with our standards for this CUP when I get to that point. So as I mentioned, this is a dwelling. It was actually constructed with 2 living areas. It looks almost like 2 houses, but it's 1 house. There was a living area here for the property owner, and then his son and his family lived in this portion, but it's actually 1 large house. There is a hot tub, which would be for the use of the vacation rental or the property owner. Each one of these living areas has a garage and has parking, so it would have the adequate parking. And as I mentioned, there was a family living in this portion of the house, but the son and his family have moved away. So this portion of the house is now vacant, and the property owner would like to have it as a vacation rental while they kept living in the southern portion. No physical changes are being proposed to the property unless signage is being proposed, and that would have to go through a sign permit through Zoning and Codes office. And this is kind of just an image of showing you how the structures look. They almost look like two houses. They're built kind of differently, but they are joined. And so it is just one structure with two living areas. So some of the key points, no exterior changes are being proposed to the site with this use, except maybe signage. It's not in the urban growth area or within 3 miles of any city. And probably the principal key point is that access is taken from East 715 Road. So traffic limitations are being recommended. So with the CUP, we look at the various review criteria, which include the golden factor. And one of the principal ones is the use compatible with zoning and land use in the nearby area? So the zoning in the nearby area is almost all agricultural. There is some transitional agriculture, and that's basically because of parcel size. And as you look at the aerial on the right, you can see there's quite a lot of woodland, quite a lot of agriculture, and then there's a large amount of open space in the Lone Star Lake. So it would be a good location for a vacation rental. I mean, the vacation rental could benefit from the surrounding uses. And also, as there's no changes being proposed to the site and the limitations on the amount of traffic, it should be compatible with the zoning and land uses in the nearby area. And some of the conditions that we're recommending, some of the standard conditions, one is that there would be a manager, a property manager that would be available 24 hours a day whenever the vacation rental is rented. And if the CUP is approved, the property owner or the manager would mail letters to everyone within a half a mile with the contact information for the property manager. And that way, if there was an issue, if there was noise or a disturbance, they could call that property manager. They would have a direct route. And so that's intended to limit any impact on the nearby properties. We look at the character of the neighborhood, and we usually look at about a mile or half mile from the subject property. The red dots are residences in this area. The yellow dot is the Lone Star Lake Marina. And then we have two residences fairly close to the subject property. They are divided with vegetation on the site, so there would be a buffer. And so, as I mentioned, there's no changes to the property, and this should maintain the character of the neighborhood, and the vacation rental would definitely benefit from the character of the neighborhood, given the open space and just the rural quality here. So we are recommending some conditions, and the first one is an occupancy limit. This may not always be placed on vacation rentals, but this is intended to kind of maintain that same level of traffic that was there when the family lived in that other part of the house. So no more than 2 cars. And when they advertise the facility, they can only advertise it for 6 guests and 2 cars. The property manager that would be available 24 hours a day when it's rented, and their contact information would be provided to zoning and codes as well as mailed out to neighbors. And there's a 5-year time frame. And the reason we're proposing this 5-year time frame is because we expect our amendment to go through pretty quickly. It's tentatively scheduled to go to the Planning Commission in March. So it would probably be before you in April or May. And just depending on what kind of changes would need to be made. But we wanted the applicant to be able to get some use out of this conditional use permit since they went through the process. But after 5 years, when the CUP expires, it's very likely they would be able to go through the registration, the administrative registration, and not have to renew a CUP. And if not, if they didn't meet the criteria, then they would be back before you as a CUP. And there is a general condition that the activities will not constitute a nuisance. And Douglas County does have a nuisance not really an ordinance, but a nuisance provision in the code that they would have to comply with. There are some other actions that would be required. The house was built in 2014, so it was built to building codes with building permits, but they would require a life safety inspection. So for the portion that would be open to the public, zoning and codes would conduct a life safety inspection, checking the fire alarms, and just other features to make sure that it's safe to be inhabited by the public. And then there's some administrative signage that zoning and codes would require to be posted, and that would be included in the conditional use permit. Things such as emergency routes during fires, how to handle the trash, information such as that. And so they have a list of administrative signage that they would require to be posted. And the Planning Commission voted to forward this application to you unanimously with recommendation for approval based on the findings and report and subject to the conditions that I've just summarized. So I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any for me. And the applicant is also, he's, I believe, present in person today.
Thank you, Mary. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mary? If we go ahead and bring the applicant up. Okay. Do you have, you don't have to address us, but if you have anything you'd like us to know, that would be great. To come on up to the mic.
Well, Commissioners, thank you for taking this into consideration tonight. And Mary, I think, laid this out very well. There's just one exception. Our neighbor directly to our west, about 1,200 feet, their house burned down 2 years ago, so it's toll-free, so no one's living there. So it's really the only one where you come into the park initially. I just want to assure you that all those stipulations that Mary laid out, we will meet, and there won't be any issue meeting those. Just a little bit of background. When we built this as a multi-generational home, and where our daughter and son-in-law lived in the blue portion. At that point in time, they only had 3 kids, but here, come the middle of last year, they had 7 kids, so they fundamentally outgrew the house and ended up having to move down to Overland Park. So my wife and I kind of like, what are we going to do with this? And so we thought great idea would be to do this, the vacation rental deal as an Airbnb or Vrbo. And in terms of the six people in 2 cars, there's no issue in meeting that because we've already set that as a stipulation. We've had a number of inquiries. We can't take anything, but we've had a number of inquiries. And just based on talking to other Airbnb hosts in town, fundamentally, generally they get rented out over the weekends where people show up on Friday, go to the game on Saturday, and then leave on Sunday. So fundamentally, you got 2 or 3 trips in the town and that's it. We don't take any single nights because generally the comments I've noticed and got back is one-nighters or parties, and we don't want that. So in terms of sound interference, there's more sound that comes off the lake in the summertime than we could ever generate where we're at. So, we would greatly appreciate your approval, and so we could move forward with this.
Can you share your name?
Oh, I'm sorry, Florian Rothbrost, owner.
So you actually answered my first question, which was, how did you feel about the condition of the 6 people in 2 cars? But that seems
It's
to
not
be
an
okay
issue,
with you?
no. In fact, the way we set it up, it's got a king, a queen, and 2 bunks. So it's set up for 6 people.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? Nope, that was my question too. Yep. Thank you very much. I'm going to open this.
Thank you for your consideration.
So this is a public item or action item. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak on this? And anyone online? Nope. With that, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the commission for conversation.
I will just say I appreciate Mary's update that that there is a process underway to make it so that many of these or vacation rental applications such as these, where they're pretty simple and straightforward and not really any clear or present concerns, can be handled administratively. That makes a lot of sense to me. So mostly happy to receive that update and otherwise supportive.
Same here. I appreciate your patience with the process. It is an arduous process. It takes time. I think when we get that text amendment done, it will just streamline things for similar folks. But I just appreciate you bearing with us through the process that we have at the moment. Any other thoughts or motions?
Commissioner Reed, I move to approve the conditional use permit CUP-23-00383 for a vacation rental use at 724 East 715 Road, based on the findings of fact presented in the staff report, subject to the conditions listed in the resolution, and adopt resolution number 24-07.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you for being here. And that brings us to our third item, which is the Treatment and Recovery Center Advisory Group. And can I turn that to Sarah?
Yeah, Commissioners, our Director of Behavioral Health Projects, Bob Tryansky, is online and will start the presentation. Go ahead, Bob. Bob, I think you may have to.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I have to unmute the phone instead of my computer. And happy Valentine's Day. We have a fairly simple, I hope, item for your consideration this afternoon. In December, we came to the coalition members and Bert Nash and the TRC staff and Douglas County came to ask for you to approve the creation of a treatment and recovery center advisory group. Over the last month, we have gone through a process of making an online application available for that purpose. We had 53 people who applied. Out of that 53 people, there were some I'm just going to change my slide here. There was a makeup and a structure for the group that was recommended. We wanted to see at least 2 to 3 members from each of 5 sectors of the community. So those 5 sectors were community advocates, people with lived experience and lived expertise, with substance use disorders, with mental illness, with suicidality, and with housing insecurity or homelessness, law enforcement, EMS, justice system expertise, physician and clinical expertise, human services, legal, organizational management expertise. And we wanted to make sure that the lived experience reflected the diversity of the community and the scope and breadth of behavioral health challenges presented by TRC clients. So we had 53 people apply. We have narrowed that down to 14 recommended individuals. What I'd like you to know is that 5 of those individuals have direct lived experience and satisfy the commitment that we made in the charter that 35% of the advisory group would be comprised of individuals with lived experience. This was a very difficult process. I don't say that just because that's what you say at things like this. We had really a remarkable list of very interested people with a lot of expertise and experience and a real desire to serve on this committee. So one of the other things that we're bringing to you tonight is consideration for a term limit structure that would ensure that people will rotate on and off the advisory group. I wanted to share with you kind of what we're proposing for the structure of that. Essentially, it's to take the group of 14 and divide it roughly into thirds, and to have 1/3 of the group volunteer commit to serving a 1-year term with an opportunity for a 3-year renewal. The second group would commit to a 2-year term with an opportunity for a 3-year renewal. And the third group would serve a 3-year term with one-time 3-year renewal. So we're trying to build in the opportunity for rotation, for sustainability, but also for variety of membership. And what we'd like to propose is that the initial members of the group would self-select which of those initial terms that they would like to serve, and we will go from there. So what we're asking for is, we haven't broken down the recommended names, particularly by one sector of experience or another, to kind of protect people's privacy. We don't really see them representing an agency or an organization. They're all members of the community representing their perspective as residents of the community. And so that is where we are. You have the list of 14 individuals, and I will take questions if you have them.
That's my only question is, should we hear from others that were involved in that process, that selection process? I believe, Patrick, would you have any input you'd like to give us?
Patrick Schmitz, Bert Nash. Like Bob, I was really thrilled with the significant response that we had, over 50 members of our community. And as Bob said, it was a challenge for us to go through that list because
so many qualified individuals, and but I was really pleased with the process we went through to narrow that down, and then had conversations. And I think at the end we had a really unanimous kind of decision as to the direction to go. So I'm really excited about being able to move this forward. I think this is the last significant piece that we need to get in place, and so I'm really pleased we're here tonight to get that done. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions, comments before I open it up? Okay. This is a public hearing item. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak on this? And anyone online? All right, seeing none, I bring it back up for our consideration. I would lead by saying I was thrilled to see the community step up, show an interest. This is truly a community asset. People are taking ownership of it and have excitement around it, and also want to just make sure that we know it and hone it and make it the best opportunity that can be. So I'm thrilled with the names that I see. I don't know all of them on there, but I know many of them, and I'm excited for the voices that are going to move forward, and I very much appreciate their willingness to serve.
This Commissioner Reed, I'd echo those comments and just add that I also really appreciate the articulation of it and thought behind the staggered approach for terms and the self-selection process. So was pleased to read that and think that it makes for a more empowering experience and is a good way to plan for that balance of continuity and sustainability with infusion of new perspective and giving opportunities to some of those other community members. But I also will just say, I wasn't necessarily surprised to learn that over 50 people had expressed their interest in a relatively short time frame, right? You know, we always wonder how much folks are going to pick up on those needs that we put out to the community and ask for submissions for, and that's certainly not indicative of the response we get on all our community boards or advisory committees. It's no surprise to me that there's a lot more community interest in this, but I was really pleased and heartened to hear that staff and the folks who reviewed this felt that it was a difficult process because of the caliber and quality and content of those applications and the drive of so many community members. So that makes me very hopeful and excited to see what kind of perspectives we'll get over the years and how that will continue to grow.
Commissioners, if I could, I feel obligated to chime in and say, if any of the folks who did not get selected for this board are interested in service in other areas of Douglas County, the commissioners are going to review openings for like 8 vacancies in other boards, including the Heritage Conservation Council, the Health Department, the Fair Board, and the Metropolitan Planning Commission, Property Crimes Compensation Board, et cetera. So if you're interested in serving, we've got lots of places that maybe get less headlines that could really use some help as well.
Yes, thank you for threading that needle, Sarah. I appreciate you.
I was going to say, I appreciate the shameless plug. It is hard to get volunteers. And I was going to kind of reiterate that folks that applied to this and weren't selected this time, stay engaged. You can still meet with members of the board, have your voice heard. This is meant to be an expansive conversation in the community, so I think there is still very much a role for those folks. Is there interest in a motion?
Yes, forgive me, I clicked away, but I think it's right here on this paper in front of me. It's Commissioner Reed. I move to appoint the recommended candidates to the Treatment and Recovery Center Advisory Group and approve the staggered term structure.
Kelly?
That would be a second from Commissioner Kelly. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for that work. And that concludes our regular business meeting. We move to appointments. Do we have any appointments that, other than what we just accomplished, any appointments for this evening?
None from me.
I think Commissioner Kelly is still working on his one, so we can wait on that.
Okay, and then we have Commissioner and/or Administrator Miscellaneous. Sarah, would you like to kick us off with your memo?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. My weekly memo is attached to the packet. A few new dates have been added to the long list of early spring dates of different events going on. The ones I want to make sure commissioners are aware of that are new is that the City of Lawrence State of the City address has been announced by the Chamber. If commissioners are interested in attending, let us know. And we added to Friday is the Douglas County Youth Entrepreneurial Challenge at Peasley Technical Center, and Jill and a lot of folks are getting really excited about that event. Next week, we have a work session at 4 o'clock on the Judicial and Law Enforcement Center, progress on that project. So please mark your calendars. I don't have additional work sessions set, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to add them. So we are still working on some, so please, we'll keep updating this. Under the informational items, I wanted to specifically note that in addition to some of the just things attached in terms of updates, I got an update from Chief Llewellyn with the Mobile Integrated Health Team, and we had a presentation on that team coming online at the end of last year, and he was able to share some success stories that the Mobile Integrated Health Team has had even in their very short time of getting started. So I think commissioners might really enjoy reading some of that and seeing how this team is already working to help members of our community that just need a little extra assistance. So it was good to have that added to the packet. And we did add several appointments that are going to be coming up over the next year. So I'll make sure that commissioners know who is eligible for reappointment, and we can get moving on that list. And commissioners, that's all I have.
Sarah, are we dialing in on dates that we can start pushing out to the public for our wind discussion that was mentioned tonight in public comment?
I don't have those firm yet. I hope to by the end of the week. We have announced and have a notice on our website related to the Kansas Sky Center project, and those dates are set and on our website, and I hope to have wind firmed up by the end of the week.
Okay, and those dates for the Kansas Sky application for folks who are interested should be March 27th,
At
the Wednesday.
Yeah, so we'll do an early start for the work session on March 27th. I think we're going to start, I think I said 3:30.
3:30, okay.
And then Saturday, April 13th for the review of the conditional use permit and the public hearing.
Do we have a start date for that Saturday meeting?
I said 9 a.m.
Okay. And that is unusual for us to have a Saturday meeting, but that is to accommodate the expected voices that we would like to have and make it easier for people to participate in daylight hours. Commissioners, do you have anything else to commission? Okay.
For me.
All right. Well, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you for being here.